Hello, everybody, and welcome to podcast number 83 of the Gordon and Charisse Show, where we are beginning our mini-series on something that we've already gotten a lot of feedback on a post that we made in the Better Living community. And honey, I don't know if I can look at you and share the topic. If I may need to look away to share it because it's so deep, it's so personal. It's from the spouse's perspective.
Yes, it is. And what's the title of the podcast, Charisse?
Are you ready?
I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Don't take it personally.
I don't take anything personally.
Even though I've learned all these lessons from you, from our marriage. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So the title of this is What I Wish Somebody Would Have Told Me When I Married a Spouse with Chronic Pain. And it's a long title. Guys, I get it. But it's a deep subject. And
it is a deep subject.
And listen, my heart right now, it's joined with the hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who will eventually be listening to this one day because they are looking for support and strength themselves. And in our private Better Living Facebook community, when we did the post, so we're going to only talk today about 4 of the things. So this is going to be a 4-part mini-series. We're going to do this in increments of 4.
Okay.
And but I want to share a few. I'm not going to say their names because, again, it's a private community. But I just want to share a few of the thoughts that came out in as we were setting up for this mini series and this discussion. I couldn't believe the interaction with people who are in the community and people who are going through this themselves as the spouse. So we had some feedback that said, in order to save my sanity as well as my own health, I've stopped advising him. I'm skipping through some of these. I'm not going to say the whole message, but I thought that was interesting and realized he is the one in charge of his health, not me. I thought that was an interesting feedback from somebody. And we had somebody else that talked about this. This actually really hit me hard. She said that we often talk about how this is affecting both of us. Isn't that the truth? Mm-hmm. Pain affects the one who's not physically hurting too. And it has put a strain on our marriage. And we're looking for things to do to encourage intimacy. So I thought that was an incredibly honest and beautifully transparent thing that somebody shared. And then this one really hit me too. I think this person is coming to terms with being that spouse. Mm-hmm. She put it in italics, like being that spouse, the spouse of one that has chronic pain. It puts her in a category to some degree. She realizes that that's difficult and it's frightening. So I think it means a lot to her to have the support of other people who are in that situation, that she's not alone. She doesn't have to be alone as that spouse. And then there was somebody else who wrote that I need to hear more about this topic. I'm so excited. So that sets us up. That's the tee off. People are waiting for this kind of information.
Well, here's what's beautiful. I would like to give the backdrop of how you even came up with this series title and how you came up with your responses. You had like a 5-minute download from God because we were talking about different things, what would benefit the Better Living community. We have all these different formats and thoughts and notes, and we've done all these podcasts, and we have future podcasts, and we're just filling up with more information. But God gave you a download.
Amazing download.
And what's beautiful is that title, What I Wish Someone Told Me When I First Married a Spouse with Pain. It's almost like you're now taking the megaphone that we've been speaking with through our platform, and you're handing it to other people, such as those people in the Better Living community. And they're picking up the megaphone and saying, let me share my part of the story.
That's right.
Let me share how your title as well as your responses, and today we're going to cover 4 responses. Let me share how I have worked through those, and I certainly relate to what's going on. And we're both Christians. We're all Christians in this. We have our beliefs. We might have different denominations that we're affiliated with, but we love God.
And maybe somebody doesn't call
Right.
themselves a Christian,
well, maybe
but
they
they're
don't.
looking for answers. And you don't have to be a Christian to listen to this.
Right.
But I would say this, that you're going to get value out of this discussion regardless.
Yes, I agree. So let's go ahead and keep going.
Oh, please. I mean, and I would say this, and there's a few other things I want to preface before I get into the 4 topics.
Okay.
That I do realize that, if this journey has been harder than I ever thought it would be. And that's the truth. That doesn't diminish my love for you. But I had no idea as the spouse how hard the journey is. So anybody that has a bleeding heart right now, it's justifiable. You don't have to think that you're going crazy because this is hard. It is hard. And but I think, we talked about this in a previous podcast about know who your enemy is.
Yes.
And Gordon, there are times where I have misplaced my enemy tracker and I've put it on you.
Oh boy.
It's true. But it's like there is a pain monster and you're not the monster. You're not the monster. And the truth is, as the spouse, I realize we can come at this monster with 2 points of attack, from the front and from the back. We might be seeing 2 different sides of the monster because you and I are not going through the same thing. I don't feel physically the pain you go through, but emotionally, I feel crippled sometimes.
Right. And I do not feel the emotional crippling or the wreckage that you've dealt with through the last 25, almost 26 years now.
It's so true. But think of this. That monster has 2 sides.
That monster has many sides.
It does. But we can, if I don't look at you and accuse you, and if I can look at the monster for what that monster is, and if you're looking at that monster too, we have a double point of attack. We're going to slay that thing. And sometimes it requires daily slaying. Sometimes it's like hourly slaying. And sometimes it's moment by moment slaying. I'll be honest. It's a battle.
Right. The cadence is not always consistent.
That's right.
Sometimes it speeds up. Sometimes it slows down. You just never know how pain strikes and how, for instance, the spouse feels even lessened or devalued in the process of helping someone with pain. I
can say that is the truth.
Okay, let's move on to these points.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm not done because talking about this, I have to say, when you know who your enemy is, and it's not the person that's in pain. Gordon, if I told everybody that I knew that and labeled you in this way, if I said, I have a disabled husband, I'm making you the monster. I'm labeling you. I'm giving you a label that you may not be carrying in your own heart, but that I'm putting on you, that if I say that every day, do you think that that's going to make us victorious over that monster? I have to say that I've learned this, not to assign a label to you. I may say my husband struggles, but he fights victoriously. He's an overcomer in chronic pain. I have not labeled you as, this is my disabled husband. Mm-hmm. You're not.
And sometimes inappropriate labeling, the outcome of that is simply that you're devaluing someone else. Exactly. and you're taking away their strength. So
let's go through the lessons now, because there really are 4.
You are really taking over on this podcast, Sharice. I can tell you're passionate.
I'm passionate because I want to help people get further ahead faster or if they're stuck and they've been stuck for years, to feel like they have a path they can follow.
Okay, what's the first thing that popped into your mind?
The first thing was that, and this is a big one.
We're still contending with this one.
Oh, it's daily.
Oh, yes, it is.
But your job is not to fix the pain as the spouse. Oh my gosh. I mean, that was one of the feedbacks from the first feedback in the Better Living community, that she realized she couldn't fix her spouse. Well, I've come to that epiphany too, I have to say, it doesn't make me any less of a Dr. Google, but you call me out on it daily, and it's good, because if I'm spending my life trying to fix you, sometimes I'm missing out on the greatest lessons that pain can teach.
That's true.
And fixing the pain actually makes me build walls up, and it separates me from you. It sounds like it sounds counterintuitive, but it's not. Because as I'm trying to fix you, imagine trying to fix somebody that you can't fix. And each one of those areas that you're trying to fix, it's like putting a brick in front of that person. It's building a wall because you can't fix it. That wall keeps climbing. And so it brings me out of alignment when I'm trying to fix you with you and with God.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to love this. This is actually confessional.
This is. Can I add to that point?
Yes.
Okay. I see this. I remember the day we were in Destin, Florida, and we were standing in the kitchen. And I said to you, Charisse, I do not expect you to fix my pain.
Right.
And the tears roll down your cheeks.
They're welling up in my eyes right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted that responsibility taken off of you. More importantly, we know this, practically speaking, is that when you try to fix someone else's pain, especially the long-term pain, you're asserting your sense of control.
Exactly.
And when you assert that control, it's hard to open up those fingers and those hands to God to say, I surrender because I trust you, who's the creator, who created the healing apparatus in the body. I trust you to go ahead and take it over in this chronic pain scenario because I am maxed and I can do no more.
That's so appropriate to say.
Yeah. And those are things that you have to work on constantly. Mm-hmm. And I also know this because I've already seen an improvement or a development, maybe.
A maturity.
Yeah, a maturity is that as time goes on, you're going to be a completely different person in the next few years and have different insights.
I would say also the word is awareness. Even if I fall into that trap, and we can all fall into it, don't beat yourself up when you fall into the trap, people. We can all fall into that trap of trying to fix somebody that's hurting. And sometimes we replace that empathy with trying to become the rescuer, and we get caught up in a vicious codependent cycle. And you never married me and maybe somebody's in a different place than me, but from our marriage and our perspective, you never married me saying, fix me. In fact, if you thought that we had gotten married for that reason, you probably would have run 100 miles the other direction.
Oh, absolutely.
At the very beginning. You didn't want that. And I can say that fixing you, going into that mode, it actually completely takes away intimacy. Because if somebody's in that fix-it mode, how can you be intimate with that?
Well, it affects both of us. Absolutely. I feel that way because I feel like, Charisse, we have all of this information. We're walking in spiritual maturity. We're doing a bang-up job with life. But what happens is it also feeds into this cycle that you don't feel like you're complete.
Exactly.
And so then you want more. And you want more and more and more and more. And then you start looking at different areas and of your life that do not satisfy that sense of incompleteness. We are arriving
Yeah, you said it in the last podcast, and it's such a good point for the spouse too.
Absolutely.
And instead of fixing things, here's what I found is the greatest remedy to all of it.
Please.
Just for me, it's actually taking what I want to fix and laying it down at the feet of Jesus. This is all too heavy for me. So it's casting it in my prayer life to God again and again. I'm casting it. I'm giving it to him. I'm trusting him. And the more that I trust God with the outcome of your life, because he's beautiful. We talked about that in the last podcast. It's collapsing into God's arms because he is beautiful and he loves you and he loves me. If I continue to collapse into the arms of God, I am not going to be fixing you all the time. And intercession, prayer is much more important than fixing.
Absolutely.
So that's point number one. We got to move on.
Yes, we do, Sharice. Point number 2, honey.
This is a big one for me too. All of these are big. I need to just stop saying that because they're big. You don't have to stop living.
Okay,
spouse.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah. So Gordon, one of the things, and we've talked about it before, I want to bring it to the surface again, is that as the spouse, I found myself for a period of years living as a life anorexic.
Mm-hmm. Very, very accurate.
And I feel like God almost gave me that terminology, like those words for how I was feeling. I didn't know that I was feeling that at the time, but I realized that I was starving myself of living. I wouldn't enjoy a hike. I wouldn't enjoy nature. I wouldn't go outside. And I mean, I'm personally very restored by being in nature. Because you couldn't do the hike with me, I wouldn't do the hike. I would just stay indoors and sulk. I would just deprive and then actually really what happened is when my business took off so much in real estate, I became a life anorexic through business. I stopped living and just worked to the point where I could not even feel anymore. I mean, and physically, you'll never forget the days where a size 0 dress didn't even fit. It was a 0. I was so little and frail. And it was really being a life anorexic because it goes back to that first point. I couldn't fix you. Then I just decided, and then we can't do the things I want to do with you. So I'm just going to stop living. And I didn't realize I was like the Walking Dead. I was actually living less than you were. You had a great attitude a lot of days. You were picking up our boys from school. You were incredible in so many ways. You were giving your energy where you could, but I was the one that just shut down. So live, people. Go on the hike. Go outdoors. If I could have told the younger version of myself this, live.
Okay. May I interject, Sharice?
You will. So
I will interject. I
have to accept it.
I see 2 things. When you didn't take those hikes or you did not do something recreationally, I saw 2 things happen. Number 1, because I had chronic pain, you felt guilty for enjoying any aspects of life.
Absolutely.
And you would not enjoy life.
Right. You're right.
And then number 2, when you had spare time, you wanted to be in close proximity to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You wanted to see what was our marriage like? What was real? How am I doing? Is there hope for the future? Was I going to get better? You wanted to take a look at all those aspects and see how those would be digested into your soul.
It's kind of like that caregiver syndrome, you know?
Yes.
And yeah, you're right.
Okay. So when we stop living, it's also hard to create priorities, but you created the priority of work out of necessity.
Mm-hmm. But I turned it into an escape that wasn't healthy. Like
I agree.
So yes, I turned it into something that was destroying me.
And I think there's a lot of women doing the same thing right now for the men that are the spouses.
I do too. I do too. And I mean, it's amazing, actually. And it's amazing how a woman can rise up in all of her strength that God gives us to do things that we never thought we could do. And that's the beauty. But we can turn that beauty into ugly really fast if we stop living.
Well, and the other thing is this. I think that it's not understood within the church.
Mm-hmm.
So if the role of the woman is submissive to the husband, and all of a sudden she's the top money earner, and she's the one providing all the different finances and security and stability to the family structure, a lot of times, a lot of churches look down on that.
Or
and
just
you
society.
Felt, right. And you felt very, very misjudged by a lot of people.
For a lot of years. And, I think that there's more openness now than there was 20-something years ago.
Absolutely.
But yes, I dealt with, I would almost call it like some type of discrimination, or I don't even know the word that I'm looking for, but I was misunderstood. Nobody got that this fight was for the family. Mm. And so I went at it very much alone for a lot of years in that way. But let's go move on, because we have 2 more points to cover, and I want to get these in. They're critical. The next point that I wish somebody would have told me is that comparison will kill your marriage. Comparison will kill your marriage.
Okay, you have to expound upon that.
So, comparing our marriage, to the highlight reel of all of our friends' lives, and maybe all the things that they can do that we can't do. That is like a lethal dose of something that you can't get over.
It's sipping poison.
Mm-hmm. Thinking.
And you might not die. You might not kill your marriage, but man, you're barely surviving.
And then these little thoughts creep in. Like, oh, this person is healthy and they're attractive and they can do this and they can do that. My spouse can't do this. And then there becomes this seductive lure that maybe there's something better out there than the marriage that you're in. I'm serious.
Okay.
But that happens.
It does happen.
Comparison leads to those. That's kind of the end result. It may not happen at the very beginning, because I don't think everybody's intentions are always bad, but
no.
But when, again, we talked about it in the last podcast about beauty, and we're looking for something beautiful when there's so much pain around us. And when your spouse is in so much pain, it's not always beautiful, people. It's just not. And so where do you turn for that need for that image of beauty? I have found that when I look outside of my marriage, it's just a mirage. But when I turn away from comparison and I look at God in His splendor, in His glory, in His beauty, and His might, that gives me strength. Mm-hmm. And then I can say that comparison doesn't become a focal point in my marriage, that when I'm comparing, I start comparing our marriage to maybe the previous years of our marriage, but not to somebody else's marriage. Then the comparison is something achievable. We can measure a comparison within our own marriage, not by somebody else's.
Okay.
And I would not trade the journey, by the way. I would not trade and go over that fence. Like, for all the years I have gained in maturity, wisdom, and love, I can say this, people: if you are tempted to go outside of your marriage to find that beauty or that intimacy that maybe you're lacking right now because your spouse is in pain, I just want to challenge you to think about it differently. Mm-hmm. Find the beauty in God, and where you feel unfulfilled, don't use comparison to make you feel even worse. Mm-hmm. And if I had not stuck out the years, Gordon, I could have never experienced being in love with you the way that I love you.
We have a good marriage, folks, right now.
We do.
We
and
always
I don't
have.
take it for granted.
No, I do not either.
And we always, well, I think we've always loved each other, but man, we've had our frictions too.
Pain is tough.
It is.
It's almost an 80% divorce rate. And for those marriages that are just holding on, I noticed some of these tendencies through the years with you about comparison. Okay? When you were taking your eyes to put them on something more acceptable, it wasn't even beauty, it was more of this. I'm tired of looking at the destructive challenges that come with pain, especially chronic pain. Gordon's purpose is gone. His identity is shattered. His weight is up. His health is poor. I've done this day after day, month after month, year after year. You get tired of looking at it. Okay, it's like looking at a yard that hasn't been taken care of.
There are a lot of weeds.
A lot of weeds. And so you're putting your eyes, and so to see something else to gain comfort, yes, with God, and yes, going inward. But I've seen you have some good friends throughout the process. We've got friends who have been mentors. And what I've noticed is those friends aren't necessarily there every day, but they're there at the right moments.
Absolutely.
Even if it's 3 times a year.
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
It's so true. So can I move on because we're almost out of time?
I know we are, Shrish. You are very determined. That finger, I saw you point it pretty sharply.
I'm going to get to number 4. You
Let's
always like 4s. You
Yes,
always
I do.
like level 4. That's
Keep
what you
going.
said to our kids. So this next one, take it to heart. Give your spouse room to breathe and put your own oxygen mask on first.
I love that.
Because, I mean, there's so many elements of this, but I want to cover some of the most critical, that you need oxygen, spouse or friend or
Partner.
caretaker, whoever you are dealing with somebody that's hurting. You also need oxygen. You need space and you need breath. And guess what? They do too. They actually do too. And when that Better Living Community member says that, one of the Better Living Community members said that it was exhausting in her marriage to talk about pain all the time. It actually is. It sucks the oxygen out of the room. Instead of putting on an oxygen mask, you're breathing in carbon monoxide, you know? And so don't deprive yourself, spouse. Put on your oxygen mask. Put on your oxygen. Inhale God. Inhale his love for you, his powerful breath of the Holy Spirit. You exhale your pain. You're going through a lot as the spouse or the friend or whatever. You have to come to terms with it, recognize it. Don't be hard on yourself, but exhale. You need to exhale that pain too. And let out your own honest cries to God. Nobody wants to be labeled as that spouse who has a spouse with pain. I get it. But don't live by the label, because there is a complete landscape beyond what you can envision right now. But that landscape isn't going to grow if you don't put your oxygen mask on first. Don't kill the crop that's right in front of you that's about to grow.
And my response?
Tell me.
Right off the bat, I bet most people that are in pain, they want their spouses or partners or close family members to put on the oxygen mask first. They're not asking to put it on first before them. Okay? And they're also realizing this. Sometimes, yes, it's good to have an outlet to deal with your pain. Maybe it's on your exhale. But there's another thing that's in you that I've seen in you is the power of the Holy Spirit. And here's what happens. You start exhaling God's mercies.
Absolutely.
You start first, it feels like the pain's coming out. And And then as the years move on, it's God's mercies that you're exhaling, because those reconcile all of the defiled areas and the destructive areas of your life for years.
That is beautiful.
It's the truth. It's the truth. We're about finished, Sharice.
We are.
What is your thought for the day?
I would just say, may these strategies help you slay the monster together. And don't blame the other one. Don't make the person you love your monster, because they're not. But take responsibility for your side of this and grow from it. You can grow. And if you're tired and you don't want to strive more, it's okay. Rest. But then grow, because there is so much to gain. And we're going to keep covering this topic. It's too important. And it's not discussed.
It's not discussed.
So thank you for journeying with us. Thank you for being a part of our Better Living community. Thank you for being supportive of our book. Thank you for all of the things, just everybody, every listener that's out there. Thank you for sowing back into our lives as we sow into yours. You're very important to us.
And I have a thought of the day also.
Oh, wait, did we skip yours?
Yes,
oh,
we
my
did.
gosh. Wow, wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Here's my thought for the day. Okay. Number one, I am glad that you came up with this list, because I think it's raw and real and authentic. And it gives voice to those who are helping to be caregivers or caretakers for those who are suffering in pain.
Thank you.
You have a vital role. That's number one. Number two, I have an idea. I know you came up with a large list that's going to be coming out on social media, but I would like people to send feedback in. What's on your list? What do you wish you were told?
Yeah.
Okay.
We want to hear from you.
And stick it, just right on Facebook.
That's brilliant.
And I think that you can glean those points and we can add those points in. We know that there's hundreds of ideas and hundreds of tips.
Oh, that's so true.
So go ahead and
good.
feel free to communicate in the Better Living community.
Please.
But I want to say thank you for everyone who's watching and listening and participating.
Yes.
In our platform, in our podcast, in our books, and everything that we're doing.
Yep.
And I can't wait for next week to happen.
I can't wait either, honey. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time.
We'll catch you next week.
Thank you.